Hey everybody, welcome to Ask the Trainer, ZBrush Workflows. I'm Darren, I'm joined by Jonas Noseman and the amazing Ian. Hey everybody, how you guys doing today?
Good, how are you doing?
Very well.
Very awesome. Also good. How are you doing?
Not bad. I'm in a pretty good mood today, actually.
Oh, that's
always get excited when Ian's with us and we get to see some really cool ZBrush stuff. And yeah, we got some got some usual housekeeping to do real quick before I hand it off to Ian. And let's see, we got we got lots of web pages to show. Jonas, do you think you can pull those up on your end as I mention them?
All right. Yes.
Thank you.
I can do. Give me a second.
Okay.
Give me a second. Here we go.
And and also, we might even have a special treat, practically a freebie for all of you. T-shirts, we'll get there. But go check out maxon.net. Go to the news and events page. You can check out all of the shows that we have going on. I just love looking at this page. There's always such cool graphics on it. I can just get inspired by looking at it. It's amazing. And let's see. Do we have the Cineversity? The new Cineversity?
The new Cineversity, we don't have yet.
Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Teaser, it's coming.
There we go.
Oh, the gorgeous new Cineversity. Noseman just released a couple of new videos to his simulation series. Is that right?
Yeah, three additional ones to the original series, and more are coming in March.
You're like a machine man.
I'm a machine.
You should be machine man.
Well, with all the AI hype, I don't want to be called a machine now. That will.
Oh, right.
I'm smarter than.
I apologize. I'm sorry. I did not mean it that way. But yeah, check out the new Cineversity, everybody. Just a lot of awesome new content. We have also the brand new series from Anna on ZBrush, getting into ZBrush, which I am 3/4 of the way through. But anyway, let's see. Also, all of our shows and everything else that we are streaming and recording will be available on our YouTube page. And it's like you read my mind. There's the Maxon training team page with everything that we have done and will be doing. So make sure you check that out. This recording and everything else is up there. Do we have a t-shirt code for today? Can we give away some t-shirts, Jonas?
Yes, of course. Of course.
I like a good t-shirt.
That's the one. I'm also going to let me paste that.
While you're pasting that too, I just want to say as well for anyone who's watching and is still interested in getting started in ZBrush, but they're on a legacy version of 2022. The new Getting Started series with Anna Carolina was recorded in 2022. So everything there is relevant to that version. So definitely don't hesitate. Get in there. It's free. Check it out. It's awesome. Anna's the best.
Perfect. Thanks, Ian.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jonas has posted the link to the merch store where you can get a free shirt. You will need to pay for the shipping. It's not a lot. And there is a code. Sculpting Worlds, no spaces, one word. That is your code for being here with us today. Use it, get a shirt, show off, post, share, and I got that's it. That's all I got. I'm ready to toss it over to Ian and see some ZBrush. What do you guys think?
I think that's a great idea. So let's
ready.
Give it to Ian. There you go,
right.
Ian.
Thank you so much. What's going on, everybody? So today I thought it would be cool to showcase a feature called BasRelief in ZBrush. there is a lot of really cool features and thought process behind why you would want to use this feature. And a little sneak peek in this one little coin here is, first off, if you're into coin sculpting or any type of jewelry sculpting and you have other models, like this right here is my Santa Cruz hand. Anybody's seen my streams last year, I actually sculpted this guy right here and thought, you know what, he deserves to be a fun little coin of sorts. But what's also really cool is, before we get into how to do this, is that there are multiple ways about focusing this effect. And I'm going to flip it to the back, and you can see here that there's also a negative cut as well that can happen when you're doing this feature. So if you're into resin pours, or you want some sort of mold system, this is also a really great way to get that effect. So this is really fun when you're trying to repurpose your models. Like I said, I had this guy right here. So the first thing to note is that whatever model you're working on, you want to make sure that it's all on the same subtool or object. And so here, I'm going to go ahead and turn the wireframe on. You can actually see that this is all one subtool. And that's super important, because you won't be able to take a bunch of subtools that are independent of each other and merge them or use the BasRelief. So you want to make sure to, again, merge that into a single subtool so you can work with this one. And then here I have a basic sphere. It's nothing, or I'm sorry, not sphere, cylinder. I can't speak today. Happy Thursday. But you have a basic cylinder here that I just squished down. And the way I did that is I just inserted our basic cylinder 3D, and I rotated this around. And this is a really fun workflow, because all of these edge loops that are on the side actually aren't really required for what I'm trying to do. So I'm just going to point out that I actually cleaned this up by coming down to geometry, edge loop, and then I delete loops. And what that will do is delete all the non-supporting loops that make up the shape. And then I just crush this down by turning on the gizmo, turning it to its side, and using the gizmo to crush this down. And then now I am going to want to make sure that there's enough vertices on the face itself to capture the detail. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and use ZModeler. So I'm going to open up my brush palette by hitting B. And then if you're new to ZBrush, once you hit B for the brush palette, any letter you hit on the keyboard after that is going to isolate the brushes that start with that letter. So I need the ZModeler brush. So I'm going to hit Z, and that's going to isolate me down to the ZModeler, and then I'll hit M. So a lot of times if you're watching ZBrush, you'll hear a lot of us say B, Z, M. We call out that hotkey because it's just faster. And then I'm going to hover over an edge, press and hold the space bar. I'm going to go to Insert, Multiple Edge Loops. And down here at the bottom, I'm going to say Keep Groups. And that's because when I apply these edge loops, usually it's going to switch and give me alternate poly groups, which is a really fun way to kind of isolate and have a little bit more control. But for this example, I just want the geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and say Keep Poly Groups. I'm going to click and drag on the edge loop until I feel like that's going to be enough information. And then a really cool trick when you're using ZModeler is that if I go on the back and tap one time on the edge loop, it'll repeat that same action with the same amount of edge loops. So just a really cool little tip when you're using ZModeler. And if I even say, you know, I will add those loops here, I could just touch that there. But it's not needed for this, so we're going to Control Z that. Now to go ahead and get this started, I'm just going to subdivide up this mesh. So I'm just going to hit Control D. Now, again, if you're new to ZBrush, you might notice that as I'm subdividing, I'm getting a little bit of rounding on the edge. And this is perfectly normal. But if we do not want that, we can approach this one of two ways. I can either go into Geometry, and next to Divide, I can turn off the Smooth Subdivider modifier and just divide up. But then what that will do is that's going to keep all the faceting. And I don't want that. I want this to be a nice round side panel for this coin. So I'm going to Control Z that, turn the smooth back on, but instead I'm going to go ahead and crease these edges. And the ways I can do that is with the ZModeler brush, I can hover over the edge, go to Crease, and go to Complete Edge Loop, and I can touch one time and crease those. That's one way to do it. Another way you can do that is if I Control Z, I can go down on my tool menu on the right-hand side to Poly Groups. And what I can do is say Group by Normals. This is a really good feature when you're working with stuff, especially if it's hard surface and has a lot of plane changes. And now that I've isolated my coin with polygroups, I can go up to geometry, crease, and crease by polygroups. And now it's going to find all of those polygroups and it's going to give me a crease. And I'm going to Control Z so you can see that. There's the edge, crease by polygroups. It's a little faint, but it is there. It's now creased. So now when I subdivide, you see I'm going to subdivide 6 times, give me some geometry. You can see now that I have a nice smooth round surface on the side, but it's nice and sharp where it needs to be on the plane changes, which is perfect. So now how do we do bas-relief? Bas-relief is actually really, really, really simple and really fun. So what you want to do is position your objects where you're going to want them to be. And so I have a few objects here. I'm going to go ahead and hide those and come on down here.
Hey, Ian.
I really love that model, by the way. It's super
thank you
cool.
so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amen to that. That is a cool AF model. Can I say that? I hope so. Anyway.
Yeah.
So you bring those in as a subtool? Is that right?
So the model that I have, yeah, I just brought it in as a subtool. And what I did was I had this saved previously. So I hit load, and then I actually went and I found where I saved my model, which for this was under my 2022. And then I believe I had it. Where did I save that? It's here somewhere, I promise. But I just, a model like this, I just went ahead and loaded, like, let's say I want this male figure. Boom, there's a male figure base mesh. I just hit load tool. And then I either copied this and went to my main scene where I made this coin and I hit paste.
Oh, perfect.
And then, of course, we'll just solo him out. He's really, really tiny, so I had to scale him up. Or what I did was I just selected the scene and then just pasted it straight in. So either I just loaded it, copy, paste. That's generally the way to go ahead and do it. Or you just load the model that you want to do, merge it all together, and then bring in your cylinder. So either way works. I will be deleting this guy because we're not making a coin out of him today. You can go. Okay, so now I have my coin that I just made, but I want to make sure that I can project the details on this guy perfectly. So I'm going to now move this back behind my object, and I'm going to position both the coin and the hand exactly where I want it to be. So something like this. And this is important that they're not intersecting, because if the objects are intersecting before the bas-relief, you could actually get a different result, which is not what we're going for. We want a nice clean cut. The distance doesn't necessarily matter, but if you do start noticing that maybe if it's really back here and it softens up, just bring it a little bit closer. I tend to have it something like right around there, which is just not intrusive, but I can still see what's happening. Plus, you really don't want your object all the way out here in space. That's just more work than necessary. So let's go ahead and have that. So decent space, perfect. Now, what you'll want to do is make sure that the object you want to have the bas-relief effect on, that's the one that is selected. You don't want to have the hand selected and then try to bas-relief to the coin, because it won't work. So you want to select the coin. Now that I have that coin selected, I'm going to go on down, and under Subtool, we have a project bas-relief. And here you'll see some default settings. You'll have a repeat count of about 1,000. This is more of like the actual quality and resolution of the projection. Relief step tolerance, again, just giving you a little bit more control. A contrast would be like how deep those cuts would be. And then a relief blur radius. But for a really decent result out the gate, what I'll do is I'll first project this. So I'll hit project, and you can kind of see what it looks like. It'll be a little soft, and it will be just slightly detailed. But what's nice is that there's no real hard faceting. So from here, this is a pretty decent result out the gate, but I'd like to refine it just a little bit more. So I'm going to Control Z, and then I'll go ahead and re-show my hand. And then I'm just going to up the relief count. I'll say about 3,500. That's actually pretty decent. It's pretty small in the slider. You want to be careful not to go too far up too quickly, because again, it's a lot of processing power for ZBrush to handle. And if you have a weaker CPU, that might actually start to lag a bit. So I would say go small steps, a couple thousand at a time is not too bad. And I'm also going to drop the relief down to, let's say, 2 and see what that result is. So I'll go ahead and say project bas-relief. And as this goes through, what's going to be neat about this is that it's just taking this detail and it's just straight up projecting it on this coin. But now what's fun is that here, this is actually a really good result. And this is also a sculptable mesh. So I can go ahead and actually take a different brush, like let's say the Dam Standard, which is a way to do some deeper cuts. And I can actually start refining and cleaning this up a little bit, giving it just a little more detail. So if you want to get into coin sculpting, this is really, really cool. The other thing too, and that I want to call out, is that when you make a bas-relief, if the back is not protected in any way, it's going to do a negative cut. And this is what's really cool, because now you can start customizing it for what you want to do. So if I wanted to have a positive bas-relief, before I make that projection, let me Control Z, I'm just going to go ahead and mask off the backside. And then I will go ahead and say bas-relief, and I'll make this. And then the same is true if I wanted to have a negative cut. Again, like I want to make a custom resin necklace from this piece. So I'm going to have a pendant. So now I'm actually going to go ahead and I would do the opposite. So here's my positive, and you can see that now protected the back because it was completely masked off. And then again, if I wanted to do a negative aspect, so maybe, actually let's come forward, I'll just reverse that masking. So Control Tap anywhere in an empty space will be the hotkey shortcut for flipping the mask. And if I make that same exact bas-relief again, it will go ahead and make the negative cut on the back. So a lot of customization and a lot of ways to get models you've already done repurposed for doing plaques, doing coins, parts of jewelry. You can, again, mold making. It's really endless. Whatever you can think of, this is a really great feature to do that with. And
that's really cool. So this masking workflow is also the same that you would use when you want to create two separate bas-reliefs for the front and the back side, right?
Absolutely, yeah. If I wanted two different bas-relief, just mask off the other side, and then you're good to go. So yeah, it doesn't have to be just the one object. You can bring in multiple objects, and you can start, doing them one at a time, replacing. But you'd want to make sure, yeah, you mask them off and stuff like that. What I like to do is that if I do have multiple objects that I want to have in the same bas-relief, then again, just merge those items together and then stack them through, and then do your bas-relief. And then yeah, if you want to do something different on the back, just mask and protect, and you'll be good to go. And that's bas-relief in a nutshell.
That's really cool. And one thing that you could also do, as I found out, what I really love is in the top bar there is this adjust last slider. So once you did the bas-relief, you can just drag the slider to adjust the strength, or the, how do you call it, the height of the effect.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is really neat.
Yeah. And again, it's sculptable mesh too. So you're able to really come through and do a little bit of cleanup, especially like areas like this nail. It might just be a little bit soft, but everything else is perfect. You can sculpt right on top of this. And we have subdivisions. So you can get some really good resolution.
I have a question for you, Ian. So how do you make a bas-relief in ZBrush?
How do I make the bas-relief in ZBrush?
I'm joking. You just showed it. Oh, come on.
How do I do it?
I wasted a joke. I wasted a joke.
So yeah, I can show you the workflow starting in Cinema 4D, then doing the bas-relief in ZBrush, and then bringing it back to Cinema 4D.
That'd actually be really great, but I have a quick question.
Yes. Yeah.
Shoot. How, if we were how would we approach this, Jonas, if we were starting this in Cinema 4D? Like, how would we get something from Cinema to use in ZBrush?
All right.
That's a great question.
You see what I did there?
It's such a great question. I'm totally blown away by that question. So let me take over here. So I'm going to share my screen now. So what you see here is a bas-relief that I'm constantly struggling with the pronunciation of bas-relief, because I thought it was called something like BasRelief or something. But,
I don't know, man. I could be totally wrong. This is possible.
The pronunciation is
same here.
BasRelief. Yeah, so that's a correct pronunciation. But
okay, we have to get Lionel on one of the next streams so he can confirm.
I'll have to defer to what Simon would say, but yeah.
All right. So yeah, with this one, I started inside of Cinema 4D, and then I brought over all the assets that I composed together and did the what was it again, Noseman? Please say it again.
BasRelief.
Yes, I'm going to do exactly that in ZBrush, and then bring it back to Cinema 4D and show you a few other things that are important when it comes to the workflow between Cinema 4D and ZBrush. So let's just get started here, and let me create my composition first. So let's start with some assets from the asset browser. I'm gonna search for a desk, and we can, well, I really like this one because this one has got all the detail in there. So I'm gonna use that. And here we go, that's it. I'm also going to switch off textures because I'm not gonna use textures at all here. So what you can do is you can go to options here in the viewport and just switch off materials. And this way you will just have, the pure models without getting distracted by any materials. Yeah, and the next thing that I did was I just used the place tool to add some more things, like what is it called? The screen. There we go. That's the flat screen. Let's go with the monitor. There we go. Let's use this one, and let's just place it here. You can directly drag and drop it from the asset browser here onto the table onto the desktop if you're using the place tool, like so. And then let's also go with the laptop. There we go. I'm going to do the very same thing. Here we go. Rotate it like so. And then I'm going to search for a few people. The ones that I'm searching for are from, what is it called again? From AXYZ Design. Perfect. Those worked really well. So I'm going to place this guy here and rotate him in. And then maybe this could be his father, something like that. And the mother also on the phone. They are a pretty busy family.
Yeah.
So here we go. That looks about right. Maybe we need a chair as well. So I search for the chair here. And yeah, let's just use this one here. It's a dining chair, but who cares? There we go. All right, that's our composition. We may also need some sort of ground plane. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the plane that I'm going to use later to project the BasRelief on. Was that correct, Noseman? I may stand corrected again. So here we go.
No,
I'm gonna
no comment.
No comment. All right. No. So let me just rotate that in like so. And let's place it here. I'm also gonna bring up the grow shading with lines to already make the resolution of this plane a little bit higher. So let's go with 100 by 100, something like that. And we also don't need the full height. One thing I did previously was I went to this view and I switched on grow shading, because this way I can already see what's going on here. Again, I'm going to switch off materials in this view. You can also do that by hitting the shortcut NQ. And here we go. Now let me throw the whole setting here into a null so that we have one thing that we can rotate. So let's move that in a little bit. Let's also like move it or rotate it to the side, something like this, you know? And I think this is a good composition that we can use. And I'm just going to adjust this background here like so. And this is already what we need. So let me, just in case, throw everything that we want to project onto that plane into a connect. Because as Ian already mentioned, it's good when you have less objects in ZBrush. So let me first get rid of the weld. I'm not going to weld this, and I'm going to throw this in here. So this is my room, and this is the plane. Okay, how would I go from Cinema 4D into ZBrush? I forgot one more thing. Let me select these three and hold down the Alt key and create a subdivision surface. And this way, they are a little bit more defined here. Okay, now let's select the two. And what you would have to do next is you go to Extensions, go ZBrush, and then go Z Exporter. You do that. And then ZBrush opens up, showing a dragon. And there we go. So here you can see that our scene has already been added as a tool. So I'm going to create the tool. Maybe before I do that. So Ian, I might stand corrected on that, but the BasRelief is projecting based on the document resolution. Is that true?
Yes, the document.
Yes.
Well, yes, the document resolution can matter, but more of it is going to be. I would say it's more vertice dependent because just like any sculpting in ZBrush, it's going to the amount of vertices on the object is going to matter how much detail it captures. So you don't have to change the viewport resolution. The only time you'd want to change the viewport resolution, really, if you want to see crisp, clean edges, is if you're trying to render. So it depends on the goal you're trying to get. For this case, I would say there's no real need to do that when you're setting up the scene.
Okay.
So that's why I said yes and no. This depends on your
all
goal.
right. So just in case you want to know how to do that, you go to Document, and then down here you have the size options. You can simply double the size, for example. Hit yes, and then here you can zoom in and out the document. And yeah, here you would zoom out or dolly in and out with the camera. However, now with this tool selected, I'm going to draw this. And if you hold down the Shift key, you can snap to like, the 0 and 45-degree angles and 90-degree angles and so on. Then we hit Edit.
Yep.
So that we can rotate this whole thing. And one thing that has been added in ZBrush, not too well, in one of the latest versions, right, is right-click navigation. So
right-click navigation is, yeah, it was added a little while ago, but it is there now. Yes.
All right. So then I saw a video where Paul said something like, "Hey, this is a new feature and it's really cool," and it is really cool because you can just right-click anywhere in the scene, and you will orbit around it. So before. You just had to use left mouse click, but then you would have to start clicking outside of the objects or here in the safe area. However, there we go. I just snapped to an orthographic view again, and then I'm gonna Alt right click to move this in and Control right click to move it to something like this. All right. So this is how we want to project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my subtools and select the back plate. And then I'm going to go down to geometry and I'm going to subdivide this. And as you can hear, I'm using ZBrush with a mouse here because I don't need brushes here.
You're just popping in to visit. And then
yeah. All right, let's divide one more time. Okay, and then we go back to subtools, and as Ian already showed, the one that you're projecting on needs to be selected, and then you go down to project BasRelief and hit the project button. I'm not going to go into the settings right now because you already did, Ian.
Yeah.
So
also, really quick shout out to the red wax.
Yeah. All right, now we can switch that off, and you can already see that we now have this cool relief, right? And now we can also activate dynamic perspective again, so that it's not like isometric. All right, and now we have this. That's and great. It's cut off here because that's the end of the original plane. And here with the adjust last, I can now adjust that the height or the strength of the effect. And now if you want to bring this back into Cinema 4D, you might also want to create some textures already with it. For example, a displacement texture or a normal texture or a color texture, because there are some cool things with that you can do with ZBrush's masking. And let me show you one thing here. If you go down to masking, you can mask by ambient occlusion, by cavity, by depth, and so on. And what I really like is masking by cavity. And if you do that, you can see that this is happening. So right now we just got a little bit of stuff here. Maybe we can increase the blur radius to something like, let's go with 8 and try again.
It looks like curvature, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do something like this. And then maybe let's blur the mask one time. And this way, what's cool here is that we get all of these masked areas in the creases of the t-shirts and of the cloths, and also here. And this will help us later to define more detail in the texture, because usually what happens to, let's say, a coin that has some bump that is going inwards, that you have some sort of dirt that is being collected there, and you never get that out again. So we can use this to create the map exactly for that. So let's go down and let's go to texture map. And in here, we can create a texture map from the masking. So if I do that, let's see if that works. Oh, that didn't work. That is now the thing that we were talking about before the show. And let me see.
Yeah, do me a favor real quick. Drop to your lowest subdivision level.
Yeah.
And then just turn off the texture too when you get a second.
So here we go. Lowest subdivision level. And
just turn off the texture. Is texture on? You could just turn texture off. There you go.
Yep.
And then go to where is it? UV map.
Yeah.
Do a quick, and then just say morph UV. I'm curious on what it looks like. Oh yeah. Okay. Go ahead and hit morph UV one more time. Now that we're on the lowest subdivision level, you see that kind of like it's like kind of grading up. So let's actually fix the UVs. Let's get some quick UVs real fast. So go up to Z plugin.
Z plugin.
And go to UV master.
Yeah.
And then turn symmetry off, because we've made asymmetrical changes to this mesh. And then just say unwrap.
All right.
So you can always unwrap on the lowest subdivision level without having to redo anything. Now let's kick it back up to its highest subdivision level.
Okay.
And now let's go ahead and try that again.
And let's try it again. Here we go. New from masking.
There you go.
And there we go. That's the thing. I mean, the UVs are not the best, but at least the texture is working now. So
yeah, if you need some dirty UVs, like really, really, really quickly, that's one way to do it. A way I've been doing it too for auto unpacking is sending it to Cinema 4D and using the auto unwrap there.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So we actually got a question from I'm called Andy. Thank you very much, Andy.
Andy,
nice to see
you,
you,
my friend.
Again.
Nice to have you here.
And I think this is a good time to toss it in, since Ian and Jonas are sort of working together on this one. The question is there a similar method using alphas? Could you use the input sculpt to create an alpha?
So yeah, you actually can use the sculpture and make a mesh from alpha. So after Jonas, if you want, I can go ahead and show that real quickly.
Yeah,
that is possible. I personally think the BasRelief is a much better approach, as the create alpha from mesh has been there a little bit, but that is another approach that you can take. Yes.
All right. So yeah, so now that we have the texture map, let's also create the normal map and displacement map. And to do that, we need to bring down the geometry here to the lowest subdivision. And then let me go to Displacement Map first and simply hit the Create Displacement Map button. And there we go. This is our displacement map. And let's do the same with the normal map. Just create the normal map. It's that easy. So here we go. This is our normal map. And now the question is, how can we bring this back to Cinema 4D? So
yeah, that actually got me thinking, how would we do this without ZBrush at all, just in Cinema 4D? And I think
you can't.
Noseman might have an answer for us to that.
Well, it's not possible that way. There is a way, but let me show this first here. So if you go back to Cinema 4D, let me create a new scene. And let me just bring this back. You can always have a look at which subtools are visible and make sure that you just have this one visible or the ones visible that you want to bring over. And then you have this Go Z line here with buttons. And if I click visible, this will be brought back to Cinema 4D. Now, watch this. In the materials, it already created a material, a standard material with color, normal, and displacement. If I want this to be a Redshift material, let me just create a new scene here and switch the renderer to Redshift. And once this has been done, and I press the Go Z Visible button again, Cinema 4D knows that now it has to create a Redshift setup for this. So now you can see that we have this Redshift material in here, right? And also a Redshift object tag that is taking care of the displacement. And now let me quickly just create a very quick rendering setup with an HDR. I'm going to search that in the asset browser. If you haven't checked out the asset browser, do it, because there are so many useful assets in there that you can just
use month we get new
for your
ones.
projects. All right, now let's render this. Let's see. Yeah, processing textures always takes a while when you have an HDR in there. But yeah, we are getting there. So we are having this texture in there, and yeah, a little bit of lighting and so on. So one thing that is important to know about this workflow is that here in the node editor, we now have this setup that has been pre-made for us. And this node here is the one that is carrying some information about the ZBrush setup or the ZBrush scene. So let me just quickly rearrange a few things here, like so. The important thing is that if you want to adjust a few things, like let's say here in the color texture, maybe let me switch to my custom nodes layout so that we have a little bit more space here. So let's say we want to add a ramp to this texture here. Oh, that's the displacement map. We may want to do that with the diffuse. So this is our diffuse texture. And let's say we want to add a ramp to make it more contrasty or so. And if I just add a ramp here before the Go Z node, and then let's say I adjust something inside of ZBrush. So let me go back and let me just export this again. Where is it, by the way?
There's a plane, so you may want to rotate.
Yeah, so maybe it should be still there, right? So I can just export it again. Oh yeah, here we go. So now you can see that this thing has been detached, right? So this is not belonging anymore to that setup. Instead, what we have here, oh, let me go there. Here we go. Instead, what we have here is new inputs, right? So we can actually delete this one. And let me now add the ramp to the diffuse line here, to that wire. And if we do that and connect this to our standard material node, then we just make sure that everything that is on the left of the ZBrush Go Z standard node has not been touched. And that's what we need in order to keep that whole setup so that we don't need to rewire stuff every time. So now I can go into ZBrush. Let me just quit the rendering here. Now we can jump back into ZBrush. And let's say I want to, let's just paint something on here, right? Like so. And now we also want to update one of the textures. Let's do this with the normal map. Are we still on the lowest level? Yes, that's good. So let's recreate the normal map. And now you see here that we have this new stroke in there. And if I bring this over to Cinema 4D again, then you can see that our ramp is still here. It's all in place. But here on this side, give me a second to rearrange again. There we go. Only the things that are on the left side of this node have been updated, right? So everything that is on the right side of that node stayed as it was. So we can adjust parameters here, and so on. We can adjust parameters, we can add nodes, we can layer this together with Maxon noise, for example. Let me just try to do that. So
I love that it doesn't rebuild the entire tree.
Yeah. I was just going to say that.
That's super useful.
Yeah.
But you need to know.
Fear nodes. Nodes are still like the thing that gets me. I'm learning slowly. But like nodes are still like my bane. This
me
is
too.
But yeah, everything you really need to know is that you don't want to touch any of those wires between those textures and the ZBrush Go Z standard node. Everything that you do on the right side will stay unaffected once you update. So let me solo this and let's have a look at this texture. So yeah, now you can see that we noised up this this cavity map a little bit. So we can adjust the noise here even more. Let's go down to input and let's say we want to have an overall scale of 0.5, like so. And also here with the ramp node, let's say we want to bring the white in a little bit.
So
right. Let me just quickly show me once again the export.
Okay.
We just export it again, just the visible ones. And now you can see that everything here on the right of that node here is still intact and just works. Yeah, it's so cool. Only this here and everything that is on the left of it that will be affected.
Time saver.
That's a time saver, absolutely. Yeah, and this way you can mix this up with other texture maps. Like one thing that I always love, let me switch back to the standard layout. One thing that I always love is using the imperfection textures that we have in the asset browser. Like here, some smudges, scratches, and stuff like that. Just throw them in, and as long as they are let's say, directly connected to the standard material node or any node that is on the right of this one here, then it will just stay in there no matter how often you reload the text, reload this scene from ZBrush. So
that's awesome.
It's really cool.
Yeah,
it's a really great workflow thing.
Can we, hey Ian, do you want to show the thing with the alphas real quick?
Yeah, I could show it real quick because I know Noseman is dying to get the screen, and I don't want to keep.
I want to see.
Not at all.
Yeah, I want to see that too.
Not at all. But go on.
Ian, you have the screen back.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And also, Jonas, that's a great workflow. I'm actually going to try that after this too and implement the Cinema 4D side because I need to do that. But so very much the same approach like you would for a BasRelief is that, again, you want to bring in all your tools like Jonas even showed to have everything on the same subtool. So that way you can do the alpha. But if you want to work with alphas instead, all you need to do is with your subtool selected that you want to create the alpha from, on the top left-hand side of the menu, go to alpha, and then there is a button called From Mesh. And if I click this, it's now going to produce an alpha map that I can even down here at the bottom, I can control how big that is all the way up to 2K. That might be a bit excessive, but it defaults at 512, which is pretty standard. So you can even type in exactly what you want. So that little red highlight down here at the bottom, once you move the slider or click one time, you can type in like, 1024. Once you say okay, now you have an alpha that you can work with. So if I wanted to then insert a plane, so I'll take a plane 3D and then I'll subdivide a few times just to get some decent geometry. Now with this alpha, I can come here. I can also export it real fast. I can come here and export my alpha and use this as either a Photoshop file, bitmap, or TIFF. I would probably choose Photoshop for that. It's just I'm used to that. But now what I can do is under like a standard brush or any brush really that you're using, you can say drag rec, which now this will take the alpha, and I'm going to go a really high intensity just for demonstration, and I will drag this out. Now, you might notice too that it's actually fading on the side here, and that's because of the way the brush focal shift is. If I want a sharper drag out to get all the detail, I'd actually drop the focal shift down to maybe 0, and then I would go ahead and drag that out. And then that's going to go ahead and produce that result. But like I had said earlier, one of the reasons why I don't necessarily like this is that it's a little hard to control this. Now with last adjust, you could do that. You can kind of crush that down, but you'll notice that once I make this drag, I have all this nice detail, but then as I start dragging this down, that detail is starting to fade away. So I would definitely recommend saying that the BasRelief is the newest and my favorite way of going about it. But if you need to quickly make an alpha from any mesh that you've created, that's how you would do it.
Cool.
Thanks, Ian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
All right, Noseman, it is all you, buddy. Take it back.
Let me give.
But I was muted.
So here you go. You have the screen.
I have the screen. So the method I'm going to show is for very simple. Let's say creating displacement maps using simple gradients, no special tools used. And it's mostly a manual process. It will help you understand the concepts behind displacement maps. Now, in the case of those multiple objects and that scene that Jonas made earlier with the computer and the 3 people and all that, this method I'm going to show you will not work. This will work for simple things like a single object where you have one thing and you want to extract the depth based on a camera view. So without further ado, well, the result we're going to do is something like this. So I'm going to generate the displacement map for this using standard Cinema 4D tools. And then
I'm sorry, so if you have multiple heads, it won't work?
No, if you have things in different depths. While I'm showing it, let me explain what the problem is. So let's do something. Jonas, do you have the scene with the people around the computer on your screen? If you can open it and share your screen, and I will give a description why my method is not going to work in that particular case. So then I can move on and show when you can use this particular method I am using. So if you can just switch to that scene, or did you throw it away?
Yep.
Or maybe the answer will become apparent as you go.
It's good to show the
Okay.
niggles and details. What I'm going to do is very simple anyway.
Okay, cool.
So now if you go to your to the perspective, maximize it, and let's see a few things. The furthest point from the camera is that back wall. The young lady is further in front. The guy with no hair is a bit in front. Then you have the computer. Then you have the desk. And finally, you have the person with the baseball cap. one in reverse. I think it's a rotation 180 degrees on the Y. So the problem with this is my method will attempt to map the furthest away part, which is the wall, and the closest thing, which is the, let's say, the heel or the back of the young gentleman. So we won't get that nice relief where everything, all the characters and the desk and the computer are going to be equally displaced from the surface when we do that. So that's why this particular method, what you see here, what you see there is that all humans, the computer, the standing light, and everything starts from the background and is equally extruded. This is a real bas-relief. I'm going to show you a method to create displacement maps that can be used in the same effect. And the gears are turning in my head to show you potential ways to replicate that using Cinema 4D tools, which will be posted in a fantastic video series on Cineversity. Please follow Cineversity. So you can switch to my screen now so we can start the laboring process of following along. So it's not this person, it's this one over here. So let me show you how to set this up from scratch and how to use the Cinema 4D standard tools for this. There we go. So blank screen. Let's go and get something. I'm going to do it with a Raptor because reasons. So here's a Raptor. So we have a Raptor model, and we want to, I'm going to delete everything here. And what I want to do is take sort of a half profile of this Raptor's head, and I'm going to put it under subdivision surface object to get some more detail. And I want to create something for a coin around the Raptor's head. I'm going to choose the angle I would want that to appear. And I'm going to create a camera. So there you go, we have a camera. And what we're doing here is we are creating a view towards our subject, where the closest point is the tip of the nostril, and the furthest point is wherever we want to find it, because the further in we go, the further away the points are. And let me go and create a plane. I'm going to make it a child of the camera to align it. So make it a child, and then just right-click here to reset these coordinates. And now I can move this object closer or further from the camera. I'm going to zero out these and move it away from the camera in the Z. And this way, I'm going to define the back plate. So wherever this thing is, I'm defining the furthest away point of whatever I'm making. Now, here comes the way to extract this. Now, when we're extracting a displacement map, in this particular case, we need to make sure that any point of our model that is closer to the camera is lighter. So assuming this point is going to be white, and we will define the wall on the back as black. So I'm going to take the plane and put it in here. So I have everything, and actually going to put them under a null. So I'm going to group this and just put it under a null because I'm going to apply material to this. And let's go and create a very simple standard material with a gradient. I'm going to remove this, double click. I'm not in Redshift or anything like that. I'm going to go to my luminance channel and create a very simple gradient, and just click on the gradient, right click here, and let's make the interpolation linear. There you go. We have a linear gradient now in the U direction. If I take this material and apply it to this using a flat projection, I'm going to go to my UV texture mode so we can see the actual material. I'm not going to move this camera. I'm going to deselect it. We get this very odd thing. So I want to turn my texture so that the white part follows the camera. And one thing about gradients in Cinema 4D is make sure you turn off the cycle. So then anything at the edge of the UV is white on one side and dark on the other side. If you have the cycle on, it will just repeat this and create a funky pattern, which is good for rave parties. Oh, if you don't know what rave parties are, I'll tell you. I can make a tutorial for that for anyone that grew up in the 90s. So with the gradient ready and with our UV texture tool, I'm going to go to rotate and rotate this 90 degrees. 70, 80, 85, 90. There you go. I'm going to start making it smaller. And I'm going to make it smaller so that the front part, which is obviously white, touches the nose, and the back part, so I'm going to scale it in this direction. I want to move it until the back becomes black. So if you go to your top view, I don't need this. You can see that I need to make it slightly deeper. And I also need to move it out. So if I go from my camera point of view now, what I'm seeing here is a depth map. And I can go to my coordinates because I'm moving. If I take this material and go to the coordinates, I can move it in its, well, not the global X, but the Z, just to make sure that I get to the point where the background becomes black. So now we can see an obvious hand-created displacement map, because the reason it's a displacement map is because the lightness of our gradient indicates the things that are closest to us. Now, funny enough, I saw this technique many years ago in the late 90s, which was the prominent way people created displacement maps using what was then a novelty called 3D software. And this is ready to be rendered now. So let's go to our camera settings. I'm going to make it square because why not? So I'm going to make it 2000 by 2000, so I can render this this way. And just want to make sure that we have enough crop. I'm just going to go in here. Now, oops, I pressed my keyboard while I was still in there. So make sure you close it. Now, if you like this and you just want to crop it differently, because I don't want to change the parallax, as I did earlier, which I shouldn't have done, just go to the camera and zoom in and use your film offset to bring this wherever you want it to be. So you can do those. It doesn't distort. It doesn't create parallax when you use the film offset and the focal length to zoom in or out. And let's go and save this, right? So I'm going to go here. I'm going to make this a 32-bit image so I can have more, let's say, depth in my color to make my gradients smoother. And basically, I can either put a name here. Let's go and put a name. Let's go to I'm going to put it in the text folder, and I'm going to name it the other, right? This and the other. Very, very important to put proper names. And I'm going to render it. So just click here, and here it is. So we have an image now that represents the distance from the camera based on a gradient, black and white, and blah, blah, blah. So all we have to do now is use any tool that creates offsets in the geometry. And in my particular case, I'm going to let's get a cylinder. Let's turn on that. That was my German accent, cylinder. Let's do that.
Very good.
I knew that. So let's increase this. Let's make it silly. Right. Let's some silly numbers here, and let's create another material. Now, from this point onwards, you can use Redshift. You can use anything that can take a height map, a displacement map, and use it. I'm just going to do the following. I'm going to create a standard material, and I'm going to use a displacer to apply this displacement. So I'm going to go to my color channel. I'm going to load the other. There it is. Do I want to change application and all that? I don't know. What am I talking about? No. And I'm going to apply it to this. It's nicely applied. You can go and do it using a flat projection. Again, you select the object and the material, and you use this little gizmo to rotate it, just in case you didn't know. There we are, 90 degrees. You can always go to the fit to object, and you can do all sorts of other fancy stuff. And how do we use this now in a displacer? Well, that's very simple. First of all, we need a displacer, not in the effectors. You're not paying attention. It's in the modifiers, deformers. Go displacer, stick it in here. Now the displacer uses some shading, which you can go and choose any shader, but also it can use a channel from a material. Good, but I don't want to see that black and white image. What can I do? Well, the secret is to put another texture over it. So we have our displacement. The default displacement is called centered. So what it does, it puts the 50% gray as the waterline, and it sends all the blacks downwards and all the whites upwards. We want the intensity, so everything goes upwards. And from this point onwards, it's just a matter of adding subdivision. So let's add a subdivision of subject. Let's grab these two and put it here because it won't make a difference. And because I can, I'm going to put the displacer as a subdivision, as a displacer of the subdivision, the new subdivided geometry, which is much higher than the original one. And let's select this, make a null, make this a child, these two siblings, and then for good measure, you add the beautiful smoothing, you drag it after the displacer, and you get this. And now we have our displacement here, and you can control the height, so you can make it 3 or 4. And because this projects on both sides, what can we do here? Well, the simplest thing is to constrain the displacer's, let's say, effect using fields. And what fields are we going to use? Well,
using what?
Fields. Using what? Field. Right. That's going a bit too far. Go to the subdivision and add a vertex map, right? And this locates each point and adds a 0 attribute to it. Make sure that you turn on fields if they're not on already. Now, here is the secret sauce. When you're doing this, always turn off the use deform points. And that is because if I do any modification, i.e. displacing or smoothing to the mesh, if this is on, then the field is going to try to accommodate for that newly displaced object. We do not want that. So what are we going to drop in here? Well, we're going to drop a linear field in the Y because I want only to assign a value. And if you say the word value from your nose, it's actually very English. Value. So I'm Greek. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but hey, who cares? We're friends here, right? So there you go. So what I'm doing here is I'm assigning values of 1 from the center of my cylinder and upwards. And I'm going to use this in the displacers. So did I do that? Deform points. There you go. That's the deform points. I didn't turn it off. And there you go. And we have this. We have a coin. Now, a few good things and tips and tricks how you can deal with this. Let's assume that I'm taking off the shading. I want to smooth out the result before applying it to the geometry, right? And that's a very simple thing to do because we're working off an image. For anyone that doesn't know, if you click, whether it's in the material editor or down here, you get this little edit image. Now, providing you have set your operating system to open, what file is this? It's a TIFF. To open TIFFs in certain software, if you click edit image, it's going to open that software immediately. You don't have to open it yourselves. And what this means is that I can go here and add adjustment layer, colors, and all that, and take advantage of all the Photoshopy things. But I'm just going to use a actually, I'm going to do it. Why not? So I'm going to convert this to a smart layer. And the reason is I don't want to lose my original thing. I'm going to go here and add a Gaussian blur. Right, there you go. So Gauss, great mathematician. So you can see I'm adding some Gaussian blur. And I'm going to save this as a Photoshop file. Let's go. I can do that with TIFF, but I don't want to lose anything. So save. And now I can go back to Cinema 4D and load the Photoshop file. Where is it? Where is it? Well, there it is. Images now. I don't care. And look at that. So from this point onwards, the Photoshop file, it has an adjustment layer. If the client doesn't like it, charge them an hour, edit image, change this number here, make it 3. There you go. Save it again. Go back to Cinema 4D and reload the image. And now you can do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's not as fancy as a BasRelief, but you can go from software to software. You can show off and you can make all these weird noises I make. And this is how you make a displacement map using a luminance channel. And yeah, I'm going to see if there's a way to replicate this. And this is the experiment I was doing over here. There we go. Instead, so this is a sort of a preface of what I'm I'm thinking about taking this. Instead of using a black and white gradient, I'm pretty sure that if you create a standard node material, a classic Cinema 4D node material, I don't need it, and you use the get shading context. This is a very scary node, right? I show it to my son when he doesn't eat. And you take the strong normal and you put it in the emission. What you're going to create is an image whose why didn't it? It should be in the emission. Anyway, I'll find out. The colors indicate the direction each thing is going. And there is a way to displace things using these normal maps. And they even work to a certain extent, terms and conditions apply, with the displacer. The displacer can take single colors, but it has some weird, there you go, down here. It can use red-green shifts and tangential or object normals or other world normals that are encoded in RGB. So this may be a total failure, but I think that a method, hybrid method like this, using these colors and the other thing I just showed you, may potentially be possible. So
I think if you want to go just the normal way, like normal texture way, then it would definitely work because you don't have the height with it, just the direction.
When you say normal texture, do you mean a normal texture or a...
No, I don't mean a texture that is normal, but a texture that is holding the normal information. What is normal information?
It's not strange information.
If you want psychedelic results, just get one of the classic Cinema 4D nodes and just start putting these into the emission, and you will see various interesting things coming up. And art is in the eye of the beholder anyway. I mean, this is a masterpiece any way you see it. So with this, I'm pretty done. Take it away. And have we overshot by 10 minutes, so we're on schedule.
We are perfectly on schedule, and we had a question about the LightBox, so I wanted to pass it over to Ian to speak to that.
Yeah, I can do it. I will take it. I also had, just real quick, Noseman, I had a question for you about the whole process. If I had an since I showcased how to take an alpha from ZBrush, can I use that alpha in that workflow that you showed in Cinema 4D?
If it's an image or if it's a vertex map alpha, you can use it in many ways. But because I wasn't paying attention, I have no idea what you're talking about, to be honest. But
okay, love the honesty.
You take it offline. You ask them that question because every single, I have to repeat it to everyone watching the show. This team over here, we have been solving problems for users for decades. And if you accumulate the amount of time we spent, it's over a century's amount of troubleshooting. And the problem is that we do these things so often that we are blind to the average user's requests. So please ask any question that comes in mind. It may sound crazy, nutty. That's how the best solutions and tutorials and shows come. So this is a good idea. Ian, ask me so we can see if there's any application, because I'm pretty sure you asking it will make a lot of sense and can be useful to a huge number of users, whether they're the ZBrush users or Cinema 4D or both. So let's take this offline and add it to the next show. Over to you.
I think the answer to that question is actually, if you can export this image as a texture, then you can use it with the same workflow.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll dive deeper in it. Sweet. So the LightBox, real quick. Is that the question, Darren?
Yeah.
Do you want to get the screen?
Oh, can I?
It does make sense.
Grab it. Can I grab it?
I just give it to you.
Oh, okay, cool. So the LightBox, if you're new to ZBrush and you're curious on what this massive thing up here at the top is, this is called a LightBox, and you can access it by hitting this button or hitting the comma key on the keyboard. And this always pops up first thing when you load ZBrush, no matter what. The thing with the Lightbox and why it's here is that this holds even more tools for you, so that you could pop in and you can actually access, base meshes, you can access more brushes, you can access a bunch of textures, materials, etc. So the Lightbox is a more in-depth menu system of things that you can actually utilize. So when you open up ZBrush, for example, when I start a brand new object, I always click this default project. I double click this and say I don't need to save anything. And this gives me a sphere that I can automatically start sculpting on, like right out the gate. So I don't have to go through and go drag out a tool, hit edit, hit make polymesh 3D. While that's a totally acceptable workflow, for me, if I just want to get started, I can just double click that project file. And all of these on the very first page that you see are your project files. If you look at the very top, you'll notice there's a menu system within this Lightbox where it gives you different access. Like if you had recent files that you had auto-saved or opened up, if you have textures, or if there's like a brush, for example, you may want to give it a second to load up because there's a lot more brushes. All of these brushes that are here are actually not in this main brush menu. So I think ZBrush ships with around 500 brushes in total, which is a lot of brushes. And if a brush over time has not been utilized so much, it just gets moved up here. And then, for example, one of my favorite brushes is a smooth, stronger brush. And the reason for this is that when you're working with higher subdivisions, instead of using the smooth brush and trying to step down and step up, but you actually want to smooth something, a smooth, stronger brush is really, really cool. If you find yourself in a menu system and you want to back out of it, you can either double click this little folder that has like a backwards arrow, and that will it'll step you back. Or you can just come up to the top and say, hey, I want to take a look at what kind of arrays there are in here. And these, again, are just different tools at your disposal. Quick save files. Again, if you have projects you're working on and you're using quick save, you can see here, I got a bunch of stuff up here at the top. So the Lightbox is just a more in-depth folder system for you to navigate. Again, definitely feel free to explore. But again, if you want to turn it off, you load up ZBrush and you get something like this, you can either just go ahead and hit the comma key that closes it, or hit the button at the top. And also, I just want to point out, we did add something new when we shipped 2023 ZBrush, is that we added a Redshift demo test project. So if I double click this is that Redshift object that, oh, I have it hidden. Yay, cool. It's a Redshift object that is coming in. I may have to, you know what? It's not showing for some reason. I think I glitched myself. But there is a bunch of projects in there that you could play with. You have a D&D die if you would like a D&D die to work on. Also, if you want to create your own custom Wacom pen holder, you can actually open up the Wacom folder, and there is a Intuos pen holder. And then you can take your model and scale your model up to this pen holder, 3D print your pen holder, and now you have one that fits your Wacom stylus. So lots of really cool stuff. But that's what the Lightbox is in a nutshell. It's just a more in-depth folder system that has a lot of stuff. And real quick before I go, besides the base meshes, what I would like to point out is that we have mannequins in here as well. And let's say you want to sculpt a hand, but you don't want to start from scratch. If I double click this human hand mannequin Z-sphere rig, I can actually come through, and we'll go more in depth in this in the future, but I can actually come through here, and let's say I want to move this. I can actually start moving, or I can start rotating or scaling up and down the actual objects, and I can get quick poses out of this really, really quickly. And then I can just hit A, and then that's actually going to go ahead and give me some mesh to work on. And then we'll go in more depth with this, but I can make adaptive skin. And now I have a sculptable mesh. So there's a lot of really cool stuff in there. Feel free to explore a lot of neat things, as well as an entire ZeeZoo, which these were built a few years ago by artists like Shane Olson, where these are animals made out of Z-spheres. So if you want to sculpt a squid and you've never sculpted one before, come up here to ZeeZoo and look, you got a base mesh to work off of. So that's the Lightbox. Really, really fun.
Wow, you never have to start from scratch again. That's really cool. So yeah. What I see is basically that that's for those of you who are using Cinema 4D, it's basically the equivalent to the asset browser in Cinema 4D.
Yep, absolutely. So here, koala, that will hug you.
You always need a hugging koala.
You do.
I love koalas. Are you guys spotting any other questions? I'm not seeing any.
I was trying to double check on, because we're also streaming on the ZBrush YouTube channel, so I wanted to make sure that there was any questions there. Let me see real fast. It blows up. Let's see.
So Matthew is pointing out that that he still wants to get one of those ZBrush drawing gloves. So maybe we can add them to the.
We need to talk to the merch store to get that added on.
Yeah, I want one of those too.
yeah. Let's make sure to have that conversation afterwards. So we had one question where it said, "Hi, when I send my ZBrush file to Maya, my model position is changing. How do I fix that?" I don't know. I don't know Maya well enough to speak on that. I don't have it installed here to showcase that either, so I'd have to take a look. But it could just be if you're sending it over via FBX, then maybe check to see if the import options on Maya are not changing that loading. If you're Go-Zing over to Maya, again, I'd have to look into that. So,
and of course, you'll want to make sure that the model is actually in the center of the world.
True. Yep. Also, too, you would want to make sure that the scale when you export out your FBX or Go-Z is as accurate. Usually, since my screen is still showing here, let me go ahead and just bring up switch. We're going to clear this out. So let's just drag here real quick a sphere. Hit make polymesh 3D. So down here at the bottom under export. If your scale is like set to 1, which is a pretty standard scale for export, just double check your export. If your scale is really, really massive, like 800, that's ridiculous. But if it is, then that could cause import issues as well. The rotation might just sound like maybe a toggle you have to hit in order to just make sure it flips around. I do know that ZBrush's viewport is just a little bit different. The other thing I would say is when you go to hit export and you say FBX, and let's just put this on my desktop real fast and say, boom, just go through and make sure that you have these different options like Maya's Y up versus Maya Z up. If you have maybe Maya Z up, that's going to give you a different result. I usually, when I would transfer files to FBX for Maya users, I would use Maya Y up as that was requested. So double check all that. But again, without seeing your scene, I'm not entirely sure. So I would just say try that. And let's see here real quick. When I was working on my project, I used layers for my modeling detail. And while I tried to turn off the layer, it won't work. Is there a way I can work after turning off the layers in ZBrush? If any sculptural change with the ZBrush layers, if you start, I'm going to turn on a layer real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and start dragging out just different spots right here. And then you go ahead and turn off recording. Anything you're trying to do after the fact, hopefully this answers your question, you're not going to be able to actually do any sculpting or any changes unless you either A, create a new layer, which then you can do that, and then you'd have to turn that off, which this will give you layer control. But 2, if you want to continue sculpting and move away from layers, you will want to bake your layers onto your mesh, which will allow you to start sculpting again. So you do want to make sure that your layers are baked in order to move forward with your design. Because again, even with, you could turn them off, but now you're kind of overriding the system and turning back on. You might find little weirdness that happens when you turn the layers back on. So either completely turn them off or bake them onto your mesh or add a new layer and start recording that way. That will help you out a lot. Doop. That's why do you have any more? Oh, we had a few more coming in, but I know we're also running out of time.
Oh yeah, we have run out of time. But if you see one you want to answer, then we're still here.
We never run out of time. We make time. We print time. We're like the Fed.
We did get this one. I'm going to put up real quick. Is there any feature where we can directly import export between ZBrush and Cinema 4D? And I believe that Jonas did show us this earlier.
Yes, exactly.
And highlighted some really cool time-saving features of it. You want to show that again, or you can also rewatch the video, whatever you like.
So the answer is go Z. I can quickly go back into that again. Let me just rearrange a few things before I take the screen. So here we go. All right. So the easiest way is to select those objects that you want to bring over to ZBrush, and then you go to Extensions, go ZBrush, and go Z Exporter. And once you hit that, I'm not going to do that now because I already have that in here. So what then will happen is this will come over, and you can start sculpting on it like I did here earlier in this session. You have the different tools. So here is the actual, here are the actual models, and I projected them onto the back plate here. And then once you are ready, you can go Z it back to Cinema 4D. That's pretty much it. And you can decide if you want to go Z back everything or just the visible ones, stuff like that. And then it's gonna come back into Cinema 4D, and even creating materials for the textures that you created inside of ZBrush. And yeah, that's the wrong file. Here we go. So then you can create something like that. But I showed that earlier. I'm not going to go over the whole process again. So please
wait before you go. I'm doing an experiment while you were talking. I'm doing an experiment. I don't know if it's going to work. Switch to my screen, and if it fails, then everyone please look at the blue light. Look at the blue light. So
you have the screen.
This is a Redshift render using something. I'm going to make it a tutorial, so I'm being very obscure.
Something.
This is a something. And now let's see how this is going to look if I put this. Now forget about the mess you see now. Let me reload the image. It should load that image. No?
Oh, what a mess.
Blue light. Where's that blue light at?
Okay. So this is that image loaded here. Color profile, is it linear? No, it's sRGB. There you go. And I just need to make sure that my displacer is in intensity. And let's see, +Y. Let's grow this. Okay, the noise is one thing. Well, there you see a fail of a technique. That's how we roll here. We test things. Well, I mean, it's interesting.
That's how we learn.
Imagine that being in your pocket. It's a coin, right? That's going to be uncomfortable. Okay, so that's not the technique.
It's totally worth a shot, though.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for NFT. Oh, this is a special NFT technique where you can make your characters look like mountain ranges. See, you twist, you turn the plot a bit, and it becomes interesting. Like, oh, is this a canyon? No, this is a face. Wow. There you go.
Yeah, you put a whole scene. You put the creatures running around, bonking each other upside the head. You zoomed in, and then you zoom out, turn around, boom. So you're just looking at a face.
The coolest thing about this displacement is that it's bi-directional.
What a way to remember that. Yeah, for sure.
And to quote Jeremy Clarkson, and on that disappointment.
Yeah. There was one other question that came in that I want to answer real quick, but I also kind of answered it in the chat, and they could take a look at other options for them. But it was, is there a way to have higher Sculptris Pro Max that is 10 million? Tried to put in a fur on his model via VDM and Sculptris, but it got capped. The thing is that each subtool does have a limit on how many vertices it can actually hold. There is a limit to that. So, you can have, millions upon millions of vertices within ZBrush, but each subtool can only hold so much. So another method is to look up HD geometry, which is a way to actually get more resolution out of your mesh without killing your computer, but also without overcapping how much each subtool can hold. And with VDMs, if you're using Sculptris Pro on top of using VDMs, then you're really densing up the mesh, and you're really causing you to kind of hit your cap sooner. So I would say use the VDMs first, maybe Dynamesh or ZRemesh or mesh, and then use Sculptris to refine it as a way. But then once you're ready for full details, check out HD Geometry. I did put a link in the description to the new ZBrush series that Anna Carolina did that's now live on the Maxon channel.
Perfect. I was going to post that. Did you? Where did you?
I posted it on the ZBrush site because we're also streaming to the ZBrush channel too.
Okay,
so
I'm
if you want
posting
to
it
that
here in our yard.
Yeah.
And
it's on Cineversity, isn't it?
It is.
Yes, it is on Cineversity. Yes.
Part of the new series.
So here you go. Cineversity.maxon.net.
Yeah. So there's a whole video dedicated for that. And all those videos on the ZBrush, there's 27 videos on that series, but they're all like, I think the longest video is 6 minutes. They're really digestible and very beginner friendly.
Yeah.
And while I'm doing special effects while you guys are talking about these things.
Perfect.
And,
I love it.
I think
Very
with
cool.
that, we'll wrap it up. I think we did everything, and
Let's
much
wrap
more.
it up.
That was a really good show, guys.
Yeah.
So are you going to do the housekeeping in the end, Darren?
Nah, I already did it. You can do it.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to do it. Cool. So yeah, here you can see the Maxon events page. If you go to the Maxon website and then news events, you get to this page and you can see all the cool and free webinars that we are doing here. So in 2 weeks, we're going to have Chris Schmidt on Ask the Trainer. And we're going to talk about spline workflows. And yeah, tomorrow we're going to have VFX and Chill. On Monday, demystifying post-production about building unreal worlds in ZBrush and Substance Painter. Also, Ellie is going to do another live breakdown next week. And yeah, ZBrush Live, Maxon Color next Thursday. We have so many things. Just have a look and make sure you watch all of these. And yeah, if you, for some reason, came in late or need to catch up on these, you can always go to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. And here you can see the recordings of everything we stream here. And also, one thing that is great, since we mentioned it a few minutes ago, is the new Cineversity, cineversity.maxon.net. Here you can find Getting Started series for all of the Maxon products. Really cool. They are, Getting Started series. They are a good starting point for everyone to expand the knowledge and the tool set. And what was that, Noseman?
Something important, because someone asked me today. The fact that we have the old Cineversity and the new Cineversity, it doesn't mean that the old is going anywhere anytime soon. The old Cineversity has anything between 4,000 and 10,000 tutorials. And they are the content has been created for the last 15 years, maybe more. So it's not going anywhere. The new Cineversity will have new content, or content which is more relevant to the new UI that was introduced in R26 and version 2023. So they're going to be more relevant. But in so far as the knowledge contained on Cineversity, the old Cineversity has an immense amount of information. And go and check out Dr. Sam's tutorial. Technical, very accurate. Yeah.
Lots of shows, lots of booth recordings. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the new Cineversity is also capable of curating tutorials.
So we're going to get tutorials
platforms.
outside.
So
that's awesome.
Whatever we see as valuable tutorials, we can host it on Cineversity. So Cineversity, the new Cineversity, is going to be the ultimate learning platform for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So last thing here that I want to share is that we give away free t-shirts. So all you need to do is to go to the Maxon merch store, and let me paste that link here into the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel chat again. And the passcode is Sculpting Worlds.
Could you send me that link real quick?
Yes.
Yes. Let me do that here in the background.
I got it, Ian. Or your name, Jonas.
Right. I was faster. However, yeah, I think we have it now. You just, you can order a t-shirt and that will be for free. You will only have to pay for the shipping. All right. And with that being said, I think we are at the end of the show, aren't we?
Yeah.
We are.
Thank you
Great.
for having me.
So
bombard you guys.
That was a really cool session.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for attending. And see you next time. Bye everyone.
Bye. Bye.